On paper, remastering a beloved game sounds like an open goal, just an excuse to print money. After all, if the minor issues of the original get ironed out, there's nothing stopping the remastered version from being superior in every way. And if the latest version has enhanced graphics, new modes, and maybe some added features, how can a customer possibly say no? Well, all of this is true in theory, but in practice it's a little bit different, as there are so many examples where the remaster actually turns out dramatically worse than its predecessor. How did the developers mess things up so royally? Well, let's find out. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game remasters that pissed off the fans. Number 10, Batman Return to Arkham. The Batman Arkham games make up one of the most respected video game franchises of all time. The main installments are all pristine as well. However, when it comes to the ports, well, the quality has been all over the place. I mean, the less said about the Arkham Knight PC port, the better. Sadly, the Return to Arkham remasters, which updated Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, similarly managed to mess up an easy win. Though it doesn't really look like it from a glance, a rather substantial amount of work had to be done to get these games up and running on Unreal Engine 4. However, these subtle differences to the colors used, especially in Arkham Asylum, left many fans underwhelmed. Generally, the game seems a little bit flatter despite the technical bump, lacking the cohesive art styles that powered the originals. Throw in some bugs and glitches, and the attempt overall seemed unworthy of games of this caliber. The fact that even now Arkham Knight has received no love on next-gen systems should indicate how little WB care about these older releases, no matter how iconic they may be. Number 9, Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. Perhaps the most obvious entry on this list. I am cheating just a little bit because technically these games are more like remakes than remasters, but still, I couldn't make this list without mentioning the GTA Definitive Edition trilogy. This release should have been such an easy win. Re-releases of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, 3 of the most beloved games of all time, should have been a home run, an easy win. Hell, not a lot of work even had to be done to sell this selection. As long as they ran well and had a slight visual touch-up, people would have bought the set in droves. Sadly, developers at Grove Street Games didn't get the memo for the first part of that sentiment. So, when they launched, each game in this trilogy was a broken, unfinished mess. The so-called Definitive Edition subtitle was just a total joke, as these games somehow ran worse than their decades-old predecessors, with constant glitches and bugs making the whole thing virtually unplayable. Rockstar have admittedly patched the titles numerous times since, but the state that this trilogy launched in was truly unforgivable. Number 8, Spider-Man PS5 Remastered. Spider-Man's PS5 remaster is a bit of an outlier on this list. Unlike others here, it's arguably the definitive version of the game. With a better frame rate, resolution, textures, and open-world lived-inness, yes, that is a word, it plays better than ever. However, the developers made one crucial change that managed to annoy a good chunk of the fans, that being they decided to completely change the model for Peter Parker's face. Now, slightly altering a character's design is nothing new, but to completely do away with the original design in favor of something else, debuted in a remaster no less, is almost unprecedented. The closest comparison to what happened here is if a character was completely recast in a movie or something. As a result, some fans reacted badly to the new face, complaining that Peter now looked too young, and they argued that Sony and Insomniac intentionally changed the face to look more like Spider-Man movie star Tom Holland. Throw this on top of the inability to buy the remaster outright, without also picking up a special edition of Spider-Man Miles Morales, and a great remaster suddenly had a huge asterisk next to it. Number 7, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Because 2020 was the 35th year anniversary of Super Mario, gamers were expecting Nintendo to do something truly special to celebrate their mustachioed mascot. So, when there were rumblings that the company were working on a remaster of multiple entries centered around the gravity-defying, turtle-stomping plumber, fans could barely contain themselves. Later that year, Nintendo officially announced Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a high-definition port of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. Although it was nice to play some of the best games ever made, and Mario Sunshine, I guess, fans ultimately expected a lot more. Instead of getting graphical overhauls to compete with modern games, or even updated camera controls, all this remaster received was a lick of paint. Also, why in the name of Yoshi did Nintendo not include Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is regularly hailed as the Wii's best game? Weirder still, though, All-Stars All-Stars actually had a time-limited release. If you didn't buy it within the first few months, your chance to replay the trilogy on new hardware was gone. It felt like Nintendo did the bare minimum for this re-release, knowing that devoted gamers would purchase it no matter what. And sadly, they were right, as Super Mario 3D All-Stars became one of the year's best-selling games, despite its backlash. Number 6, Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. With the re-release of Knights of the Old Republic, it was inevitable that the sequel to the groundbreaking role-playing game would follow. Because KOTOR, the Sith Lords, was regarded as a disappointment at the time though. However, when fans learned that this remaster would contain content missing from the original, it felt like the Sith Lords could finally redeem itself. Astoundingly though, this remaster was even more soul-crushing than the original sequel. When it launched, textures turned black without explanation, the audio sporadically dipped in and out, and characters clipped through walls so often you'd swear it was a Jedi power. Upon launch, there were many complaints that the game was crashing hourly as well, making gameplay painstakingly frustrating. Some bugs were so bad it made the Sith Lords impossible to complete outright, no matter how many times the player reset their save state. Because the first Knights of the Old Republic remaster was virtually seamless, there's just no justification why the same level of quality couldn't be maintained for this installment. Number 5, Parappa the Rapper. Because Parappa the Rapper was the first rhythm game to really take off, its influence over the genre cannot be denied. Without this title, it could be argued that there would be no Guitar Hero, no Dance Dance Revolution, no Just Dance. And imagine a world without Just Dance. No, you can't, right? It's impossible, because that would be a hellscape. So, when a remaster for the PS4 was released, everyone was hyped at the prospect of jamming with everyone's favorite beanie-wearing pup. Even if it felt dated, die-hard fans wouldn't really mind, so long as they could show off their moves and freestyle along Chop Chop Master Onion once again. Unfortunately though, the remaster screwed up one teeny-weeny aspect of this rhythm game. The rhythm. Because the developers didn't take into account how integrating Parappa the Rapper with HD TVs would lead to some discontinuation with the audio, it made the rapping sections, which is every section by the way, nearly impossible to perform. Considering this is the core mechanic of gameplay, you'll wonder how the developers overseeing the project didn't pick up on this issue. Number 4, Commandos 2, Men of Courage. For many gamers, Pyro Studios' Commandos was the first real-time tactics title they ever played. As fantastic as the first entry was though, Commandos 2, Men of Courage improved on pretty much every aspect, and is regarded as the franchise's greatest triumph to date. So when Pyro was liquidated in 2017, Calypso Media swooped in to obtain the rights for Commandos, and immediately began working on a HD makeover for the second entry. Because Men of Courage was Pyro's pride and joy though, Calypso probably assumed that the new version would print money like there was no tomorrow. But recapturing what made the original special is easier said than done. Due to the atrocious controls, jerky movements, and imprecise interactions, you could never really believe this remaster was based on one of the greatest tactical games ever made. Even if you're a massive fan of Commandos 2, it's probably best to give this remaster a wide berth. Number 3, Halo the Master Chief Collection. On paper, Halo the Master Chief Collection sounds like the best kind of gaming compilation. This set included graphically updated versions of Halo 1 to 4, and you could even switch to classic graphics for Halo 1 or 2 at the press of a button. The collection also included a live-action series, a multiplayer beta for Halo 5, and 6 maps remade from scratch. If the Master Chief Collection sounded too good to be true though, that's probably because it was. Even though online multiplayer was absolutely abhorrent on release, early reviews kinda glossed over this issue, under the belief that this hiccup would be remedied in the near future. And yet, matchmaking was still broken 1 month after launch, making playing online pretty much pointless. Instead of fixing the problem, Microsoft's attempt at damage control was offering a free subscription for Xbox Live Gold and a Halo avatar. Later on, they also included an updated version of Halo 3 and Halo Reach into the collection at no extra cost. Despite Microsoft's best efforts to assuage disgruntled consumers, it took 4 solid years to crack the matchmaking problem, when it should have been corrected within a few weeks at most, and shouldn't have been there at all if they wanted people to enjoy this game. The game is great now, but good lord, how did it take so long to get to this state? Number 2, Ape Escape on the Loose. The PlayStation had such a wide variety of awesome games, so it's no surprise that a couple didn't attain the legacy that they deserved. With that in mind, Ape Escape might not have garnered the same accolades as Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, even though it was definitely of the same caliber. Being a criminally underrated platformer, fans were overjoyed then to learn Japan Studios' Banana Bonanza was getting a remaster. But when Ape Escape on the Loose was released on the PSP, gamers immediately noticed a little snag. You see, Ape Escape wasn't just a hit because of its accessible controls, whimsical characters, and catchy tunes. The title's most appealing aspect was its usage of the DualShock gamepad. In fact, the chimp-filled classic was the first game ever where this new piece of kit was a requirement. Since DualShock pads were absent from the PSP, though, the gameplay was heavily impaired. It's kind of like playing Super Mario 64 without a control stick. It just wasn't the same. Because the DualShock is what made Ape Escape stand out, it makes you wonder why the developers put the game on a system that couldn't implement that key mechanic. Number 1, WARCRAFT 3 Reforged. If you had to learn step by step the most efficient way to disappoint someone, just look at what Blizzard did with WARCRAFT 3 Reforged. Simply put, the remastered edition of WARCRAFT 3 Reign of Chaos and the Frozen Throne expansion had 0 improvements and actually just made the experience worse. Every bug and technical issue was still intact, every positive factor from the original was removed or diluted, the graphics had regressed, and the multiplayer was rendered unplayable. Because many hyped features like the cinematic cutscenes were absent as well, consumers felt like they bought the game under false pretenses. Reforged was so badly mishandled, in fact, that gamers refused to play it and instead vowed to stick with the original. But tragically, they couldn't even do that, because WARCRAFT 3 automatically converted to Reforged, meaning the original that fans spent hundreds of hours on was nowhere to be found. I mean, there are bad games, but have you ever played a game that was so bad that it literally erased your favorite game from existence? That's what happened here. As you can imagine, fans were so enraged they review-bombed Reforged on Metacritic, making it briefly the site's lowest rated game. Instead of doing anything that resembled an apology though, Blizzard immediately doubled down and defended every decision they made. Although they would come around and eventually fix some of the issues, it was too little too late for the gaming community. Being ripped off, hurt, and insulted by the once untouchable gaming giant, it doesn't seem feasible for Blizzard to ever recover from this mess. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What did you think of these remasters, and are there any terrible ones I missed off here? While you're down there as well, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.